Hey guys, this is my last Fromm video, and I have to say it's been a really good term. And I guess from day one, Mr. Squires always said it was either if you're ready to have your mind blown and your waters tested, it was a really good class to be in. But if you weren't ready to actually change the way you think, it's a really hard class to sit through. And in the end, I think this was a really beneficial class for me. And I'm actually really glad I took it because I think it was something I needed, and I think I needed to look at relationships differently in order to have healthy relationships in the future. So I'm just gonna, I guess, talk about the most influential things and the things that I think people forget a lot about that might be really helpful for a lot of people's relationships. But one of the biggest things that really hit home with me is that I guess people kind of forget that people are always changing. It's not like you just hit a point and you stop learning or you stop growing. And I think when you get into a relationship with someone, especially a long-term relationship, that you lose track of how different people are 5 years after you know them, 10 years after you know them, and so on. And I think that's really important, especially when you get into a marriage or whatnot, because if you stop learning about that person, that's when you're gonna fall apart, because everyone's continuously changing. Every experience you have changes you in some way, and if people aren't aware of what that has done to you or what that has made you believe, then you're not gonna be in love with them, because you're in love with the person that you fell in love with. And after that person goes through an experience, they're no longer the person you fell in love with. They're this person that's changed a little bit, and I think people just aren't as aware of that as they really need to be. So I think that's a really important fact, that it's so easy to get caught up in the ways of life. You start thinking about kids, you start thinking about the bills you have to pay, and you forget to just ask them how are they doing, how's your life, what happened, are you thinking of anything differently. And I think people also need to remember that that you always need to learn. You never know yourself to the fullest. So if you stop trying to learn or stop trying to figure out how people function, and I guess just how people think, if you stop trying to inform yourself about that, you're just going to lose touch with the outside world, and you're going to lose touch with the person you love, and eventually that's going to push them away to the part that there's no longer going to be there for you. I guess another thing that I've been thinking about is how when you have children or whatnot, how you want them to be just like you. And if you don't allow your children to be like your spouse, or let your spouse have a play in it or a role in making their child kind of like them, that's also going to push away your spouse. But it's the idea again of getting to know your spouse and knowing what's important to them and being able to mesh with someone. And I don't know, I just think it's really important, I guess, to know people and to know how people think. And although you may not agree with them, or although you may not think how they think, it's detrimental to how the world functions and how you function in your relationships to know how everyone thinks, and to try to even just a friend. But if you don't know how your friend thinks, and if you don't know what matters to them, that friendship isn't A, going to be a real friendship, or B, it's not going to last very long. So I don't know, those two are really big things to me. And I guess the last one that is it's a broader thing, and you can break it down into a million little things, but the idea that there's a way that people think the world should function, but it's not necessarily how it should function. I guess the example that always stands out is my head, but if a guy cheats on his wife with a secretary, the automatic go-to response is to divorce him. But who says that's the right thing to do? No one ever sits there and goes, well, why did he do it? No one ever thinks of it that way. But maybe for people to understand why people do things, it would result in that case in a lot less divorces and like simple things like that. If people just took the time to try to understand the way people think or the way people feel, I think it would make a really big difference in the world on a lot of different levels. So I think people just need to be aware and need to break down their little ego box and not live inside a closed case world that is way too small for all the opportunities you're given. So I just think it's really important. I guess what I got out of this is to, like, in a way, never stop learning, because I guess from all it is it's teaching you to never stop learning about people, but never stop learning about anything, because you need to continue to break down your little ego box and expand everything you can, because the world isn't as small as we try to make it, and there's no reason to make it as small as we try to make it. So I don't know. There's a lot of crazy things, and I have to say, overall, in the past like 8 weeks of this class, it has completely blown my mind. So it was an awesome year, guys, and I love you all.